but there's going to be time in the end to talk a little bit about the final exam some more. So keep the questions. I'm not going to go back. Just ask it to me again. And whatever questions I don't ask now, you're still going to have a chance to ask them during the week. And we're still going to talk about this next week during class. Okay, so there's going to be plenty of time. And I will be posting instructions, which I will do as soon as I finish reading them properly. Okay? So I'm going to do that. So any questions on any of the material so far? We're good? Okay. So we're studying discharge. As I said, there's 4 different kinds of discharge. Discharge by performance, discharge by agreement, discharge by breach, and discharge by operation of law. So what we've studied so far is discharge by performance. The general rule, time of performance, tender of performance. Now, we're going to study discharge by agreement. And discharge by agreement is the basic idea that one way to discharge your contract is by performing it. Another way to discharge your contract is if the parties together agree that their contract comes to an end. So, if Sophia and I have an agreement today for her to deliver 10,000 yoga pants on June 1st, and for me to pay her $100,000 on June 1st, and we have this agreement today on April 2nd, can Sophia and I mutually agree tomorrow that she doesn't have to deliver the yoga pants and I don't have to pay her? Oh. Okay. Nikita, I don't think my audio is off. The other people, I think, can hear me. Okay, so we can agree, the 2 parties can agree to bring their contract to an end. Now, can I agree on my own? Can I say, Rafa, let's say you and I have an agreement, and I'm supposed to deliver my boat to you, and you're supposed to pay me for my boat. Can I say unilaterally, I will not deliver my boat to you? Can I do that? Can I bring a contract to an end just on my own? No. So both the parties to the contract have to agree. So that's what we're dealing with here, and that's the basic idea. And we're gonna really go through 2 different ways that parties can use their agreement to bring a contract to an end. And the 2 different ways that parties can use their agreement to bring a contract to an end is, the first is known as accord and satisfaction. But it's not really accord, it's accord. Accord is French for agreement, acceptance. So one way that the parties can bring their contract to an end is by agreeing and finding new consideration. That's satisfaction. Okay? The other way that the parties can discharge their contract by agreement is by giving one party a release. And a release does not have consideration. So instead of consideration, you have to make the release under seal. You have to make the promise under seal. So I will explain both. But that's the basic ways to bring a contract to an end using agreement. Okay? So again, this is a bit of a busy slide, but I'll break it down. So let's say that we have an agreement, okay? Mohammed, let's say you and I have an agreement. And you're supposed to deliver a boat to me. And I'm supposed to pay you $20,000.
Okay.
And let's say, let's say you deliver the boat to me, but I cannot pay you the $20,000. I don't have the cash. Can you and I agree that instead of the cash, I will give you my original Raptors championship ring full of diamonds
I think as
instead
long
of the
as
$20,000. Can we do that? Can I discharge my obligation by doing that? No, the answer is yes, you can.
yes,
This is discharge by agreement. Can we both agree that that instead of accepting cash, which was our original deal, you will accept the NBA championship ring full of diamonds?
yes,
Yes, we can. That is discharge by agreement. Why? Because one person gives new consideration, fresh consideration. Instead of giving cash, what do they give? They give Raptors championship ring. And if we agree that I'm going to give you the Raptors championship ring instead of the cash, and I give you the ring, can you then turn around and sue me for the cash?
no,
Yes or no?
I don't think so.
No. And the reason you cannot sue me for the cash, Selena, is why? What's happened? Selena or anybody else, what's happened? You have discharge. You have discharge by agreement. Exactly. And the type of discharge by agreement is accord and satisfaction. Accord, accord. Accord means agreement, and satisfaction means new consideration. So, Selena, let me take this example with you now. So, I'm supposed to pay $20,000, and you're supposed to sell me your boat. I paid you the $20,000. You're supposed to deliver to me the boat, and you don't have the boat to deliver to me. Can you and I agree that you will deliver to me instead of a boat your 2015 BMW? Can we agree to that instead of the boat? Yes. So if you deliver to me this boat, this 2015 BMW instead of the boat, have you now discharged your contract, even though you did not deliver to me the boat? Yes. So this is an example of discharge by agreement. And this is accord, we agreed, and satisfaction, there's new consideration. So if, Selena, we agree that you can give me your BMW instead of the boat, and you give me the BMW instead of the boat, can I now turn around and sue you for the boat? No. No. Okay? So you cannot. So this is an example of discharge by agreement, where there is agreement, accord, satisfaction means consideration. Okay? Mesba. You know, the question of how to get full marks on an exam is a good question. And basically, my suggestion is follow the IPAC model as best as you can. What's the issue? What's the principle of the law? What's the analysis? Why does the law apply given these facts? And what's the conclusion? As much as possible, try to do that, right? That's going to guarantee you that you haven't missed anything. Okay, Mesbab? Okay. So, Semi, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, I hope I am. Does the value of what you're giving matter? Yes or no? You think it does? For consideration, we said, and you all wrote it down, consideration needs to be sufficient. It need not be adequate. What that means is, the law cares about the fact that you have consideration, but it doesn't look at what to make sure that it's equal value. Because honestly, a boat might be worth a lot to me because I live on an island, and a car is worthless. Or a boat might mean nothing to you because you live in the desert, but maybe a car means more. So the law doesn't really care about equal values. They just care about, is there consideration? Does that make sense? Okay. So the first way that we can discharge by agreement is accord, agreement, accord, satisfaction, fresh consideration, new consideration. Selena, can I continue to use you as an example? Or you in the example? Okay, good. So now, let's talk about the second way we can discharge by agreement. So let's say I paid you the $20,000 and you don't deliver to me the boat. And let's say that I say to you, Selena, don't worry about it. I know how much you love this boat. You no longer have to deliver to me this boat. You're off the hook. And you say, wow, fantastic. If you have audio, you can say, wow, fantastic. If you don't, it's okay.
Wow, fantastic.
There we go. That's fantastic. And you go home happy because you have $20,000 and you don't have to give me a boat. The next day, I think about it. I go, that was crazy, this deal I did with Selena. And I say, no, Selena, you know what? I'm going to insist that you give me the boat, and if not, I'm going to sue you for breach of contract. Am I going to win or am I going to lose? And it doesn't just have to be Selena. Anybody.
You're going to lose?
I'm going to lose. And what's the reason I'm going to lose? The reason I'm going to lose is that my promise to release you, so we understand what release means. My promise that says to you, you no longer have to deliver the boat. That's a release. My promise to release, does it have consideration or does it not have consideration? Selena, when I said to you, I will not insist that you give me the boat, you're off the hook. Did you give me that any consideration for that or not?
No.
No. Right? And normally, a promise with no consideration, is it binding or not binding?
Not binding?
Correct. So if I say to you, a promise with no consideration is not binding. You have to write that down, Mohammed. A promise with no consideration is normally not binding. Thank you. Okay, because you got the answer right earlier. So, if I say to you, and even if we shake hands, I promise not to ask you for the boat anymore. And you say, wow, fantastic, Prof, thank you. Let's shake on it. And I shake on it. And the next day I say, no, I changed my mind. I want the boat. Are you discharged or not discharged?
I'm discharged?
Not discharged.
Not discharged.
Was my promise to release you, did it have any consideration? Yes or no?
No.
No. Is a promise with consideration binding or not binding?
Not binding.
Okay, so I'm going to start again. You don't deliver the boat. You come to me, tell me you're sorry for not delivering the boat.
Sorry for not delivering the boat.
But you know I already paid you the $20,000, right, Selena?
Yep. I'm aware.
Okay. But you know what? I feel bad. That's okay. You don't have to deliver the boat. Are you happy?
Yes.
Good. Let's shake on it.
Okay, let's shake on it.
Shake on it. Tomorrow I change my mind. I say, Selena, you have to deliver the boat. And you say, but wait a minute, you promised. That means I'm discharged. And I say, yeah, but I changed my mind. Who's going to win the argument under the law, me or you? Are you discharged or not discharged?
I'm not discharged.
Correct. She's not discharged. Selena's not going to win the argument. So if there is no consideration, what is the only way you can make a promise without consideration for that promise to be binding?
It has to be under seal.
Wow, it has to be under seal. And under seal means, and you said it earlier, Mohammed, thank you. Under seal means you write it down and you write the words, I make this promise under seal. So yes, Arkham, you sign, but more than sign. It's you sign under seal. And under seal used to mean a stamp. Now it just means you say under seal. So now, Selena, I paid you $20,000. You didn't give me the boat. Tell me you didn't give me the boat.
I won't give you, or I didn't give you the boat.
Well, I feel really bad for you, so I'm going to just say, don't worry about it. Forget about it. So now, Selena, you've now studied Law 122. What are you going to ask me to do to make sure that I never change my mind?
To agree under seal.
Exactly. And if I promise under seal, now is that promise binding, yes or no?
Yes.
Correct. So everybody, we're going to give Mohammed a high five because Mohammed, are promises under seal without consideration binding or not binding? You are correct, Mohammed. So they're binding. That is the exception to consideration. So if you want to release someone, you can do it without consideration as long as the promise is made under seal. So those are the two ways you can discharge by agreement. You agree and you give something else, or you agree and you don't give something else, but you sign it under seal.
High five.
Make sense? Way to go, Mohammed. You deserve it. Make sense? Okay. So let me give you an example. Okay? Alex and Ben have a contract. No, it doesn't make sense, Mesbah. So hopefully this example will help. Okay? So let's do this example, and then you'll still tell me if you still have a question afterwards. Let's do this example. Alex and Ben have a contract. Under the contract, Alex is supposed to fix Ben's roof. So shingles is you put the roof, you fix the roof. So Alex is supposed to fix Ben's roof. And under that contract, Ben is supposed to dig a well, a water well, on Alex's property. So Alex has to fix the roof, Ben has to dig a well. Alex fixed the roof. Ben did not dig the well. He's not going to be able to because the land is not really good for digging wells. Both parties don't want to bother with this contract anymore. They want to end this contract. What can they do? Assume that they agree. What can they do together to bring this contract to an end? To discharge this contract? What are their options? So Alex actually did what he was supposed to do and fixed the roof. Ben was supposed to dig a well and did not dig a well. What options do they have to get themselves out of this contract? So the one thing they can do, Mesbah, is who's agreeing under seal. So not Mesbah, sorry, Mohammed. Mohammed, who is agreeing under seal? Who, write as much as you can on this or put your voice on and speak. Both parties, but wait a minute. Both parties agree, but who's releasing who? In this case, if you sign under seal, one party is releasing that's okay, Mohammed. One party is releasing the other party. So if someone wants to use their voice, they can. So, who is providing the release? Alex is releasing Ben. So who's signing what? Alex is signing a release in favor of Ben. And how is Alex signing this release? Are they just signing a piece of paper or are they using any magic words? What does this promise under seal need to say? Well, it has to say under seal. So one option is for Alex to say to Ben, I release you, he has to sign it, from your obligation to build this well, and I make this promise under seal. And this is an example of a release. This is an example of of a discharge by agreement where there's no consideration under seal. So that's one way they can get out of this problem. Barry, your voice does work. What's the second way you can get out of this?
Oh, me, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, what's the question again?
How else can they get out of this?
Oh, so they have to write down the contract is made under the seal.
I know, but someone called Barry said give a new consideration. So who's that?
Give the what is the name of the people?
Alex and Ben.
Yeah, so probably the Ben will offer the new consideration to
Give
the.
me an example. What can Ben do if Alex agrees to be discharged from his obligation to dig a well?
Or the car, buy the car.
Yeah, that's worth a lot more than a well. He could say, I can buy you a car. I can bring you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I can cut your hair. I can mow your lawn. Right?
Yeah.
So in this case, you have accord, agreement, and satisfaction, which is new consideration. So yes, you're right. You discharge by agreement with new consideration. So those are the two options. So that is discharge by agreement. Mesbah, does it make more sense now? Does anybody else have any questions about this? No, you have no more questions, or you're lost? Okay. How do we get you to be unlost? We're dealing here with discharge. And we're dealing here with a situation where two parties have an agreement to each do something. My question, let's start at the beginning, Mesbah. Can both parties agree to that they no longer have to do what they promised to do? Right. So that's basically discharge by agreement. So if your agreement is to dig a well for me, can you and I agree, Mesbah, that instead of digging a well for me, you're going to drive me to the store and back instead? So that, you've now answered the first part. That is discharge by agreement. Accord, example number one, accord and satisfaction. Why? Because we both agreed, that's accord, and satisfaction is you drove me to the store instead of digging a well. You gave me new consideration. So this part you now understand, right, Mesbah? And everybody else. Good. I'm going to get everybody else's questions in a second, okay? The second way is, what if, instead of driving me to the store, I sign a piece of paper, Mesbah, and I say, I release you from your obligation to dig a well. And you don't have to give me anything else instead of it. And I promise that I release you, and I make this promise under seal. Is that binding, Mesbah, yes or no? Okay, so this is the second way you can discharge by agreement, and this is by making a promise under seal. So these are both ways that the agreement can be discharged by agreement. One is you agree and you give new consideration. The other is you agree and you make the promise under seal without consideration. Does that make it maybe a little bit better, Mesbah? Good. Parsa, do you... Good. Yash, do you have a phone that works? Do you mind putting on the audio or not? Yes? No? Maybe? Ah, well, there we go. Good that she's vacuumed. Okay, no problem. I love it. This is great. Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Joshua, do you want to speak, or is your mom also vacuuming?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Okay.
So now we're going to talk about discharge by breach with our friend Joshua. Thank you, Joshua. Okay? And Yash, when you have a second, thank your mom for vacuuming. So, you can tell her your prof said that. Discharge by breach. So, let me ask you a really basic question. Joshua, if you have to deliver 10,000 yoga pants to my warehouse, and you never deliver them, and I have to pay you $100,000. Let's keep it clean now, Yash. I don't mind LMAO. The other stuff I kind of mind a little bit. And you never deliver and you never deliver the yoga pants. Do you think I have to pay you the $100,000? Joshua.
No.
Why not? We have a contract. It says you're supposed to deliver 10,000 yoga pants. I'm supposed to pay you 100,000. So if it says, the contract says that, and you don't deliver to me the yoga pants, do I have to pay you? The answer is no. You're right. But why not?
Because there's been a breach of the contract.
I'm sorry?
Because there's been a breach. Where,
Who breached the contract? Me or you?
I breached the contract by not fulfilling the contract.
Correct. So what is the consequence of that breach? You breaching the contract means I am what?
Discharging the contract?
Not discharging. I am discharged.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? I am discharged. And what that means is I don't have to pay you. Why? Because you did not perform your contract. So I am discharged. So when we deal with discharge by breach, we deal with a situation where there is a breach. In this case, what's the breach, Joshua?
It's the failure to fulfilling. It's me failing to fulfilling contractual promise.
So make it. You don't have to read what I wrote in the slide. Put it in English. In this case, the breach is you didn't deliver the yoga pants.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't deliver the yoga pants.
So who's the innocent party in this scenario? You or me?
It would be you.
Me. So the question is, does your breach, your failure to deliver the yoga pants, which is your contractual promise, does your breach allow me, the innocent party, to discharge? Discharge means, in my case, not to pay you.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with here. Don't answer any questions yet. That's what we're dealing with here. Okay?
Okay.
Not Joshua, but everybody. Okay. So now the question is, when can your breach equal my discharge? That's what we're dealing with. One party's breach means the other party is discharged. Okay? And the answer is, it depends. And it depends upon the type of term we are dealing with. It depends upon whether we're dealing with something that is a substantial term, which that's known as a condition, or a lesser term, which is known as a warranty. You have to be careful because most people, when you say condition and warranty, it means something different. So condition and warranty in this case means a substantial term, and warranty means a lesser term. You can ignore this intermediate term. Ignore that. So I can only discharge, which means not pay you, if you breach a substantial term. Okay? So, Joshua, discharge, you're going to repeat after me. Discharge by breach.
Discharge by breach.
Is only for substantial terms.
It's only for substantial terms.
No discharge by breach for lesser terms.
No discharge
For breach.
or breach by lesser terms.
For lesser terms. So I'm going to give you an example. Are you still okay to be an example, Joshua, or not?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Let's say that you're moving from one apartment to another. Okay? Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to rent a big moving truck from me. Ask me to rent a big moving truck for me so you can move from one apartment to the other.
Can I rent a moving truck from you?
Well, sure can. When do you want it by?
By tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Perfect. I have the perfect moving truck in mind for you. You're going to give me your address and I'm going to deliver to you. Okay? Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. So tomorrow I show up and I don't have a moving truck. Oh, sorry. What's the price?
How much you want to buy?
Ask me. How much do you want the moving truck for?
Maybe 5,000.
Oh my God, I'm going to make a lot of money with you. Okay, let's say 5,000, but I would have done it for like 500.
Oh. Oh yeah.
Okay, let's say 500. I don't want this to be an unconscionable transaction. So $500, okay? So now I show up tomorrow and I don't have a moving truck. Instead of a moving truck, I have a tricycle. Do you know what a tricycle is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a tricycle. Hey, are you Joshua?
Yes.
Look, I have this for you. I know you asked for a moving truck, but that's all I had left. Do you have to pay me the $500?
No.
Did I breach my contract? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have to pay me the $500?
No, I do not.
Are you discharged from your obligation to pay me $500?
Yes. I'm discharged.
Why?
Because it's been substantially because the
Did I
problem
breach a substantial term or did I breach a lesser term?
it was in a substantial term.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example of the opposite in a second. So what I want to tell you is that when someone breaches, you don't always have the innocent party. The innocent party is not always allowed to discharge. It's not every breach that creates a discharge. It's only some breaches. Sometimes a breach allows a discharge. Sometimes a breach does not allow a discharge. A breach only allows a discharge if it's a condition. And a condition is a substantial term. And a substantial term is a term that would deprive, that would substantially deprive the innocent party of what I asked for under the contract. So if I asked, so who's the innocent party in this case, Joshua, me or you?
It'll be me.
No, if you, correct. So
Yeah.
if you asked for a moving truck and I gave you a tricycle, are you substantially deprived of what you asked for?
Yes.
Yes, you are. So in that case, because it's a condition, you have an option. You are the innocent party and you have an option. The option is to take the tricycle and sue for damages. Or, so in this case, you don't discharge the contract. Or you can discharge the contract, and if you do discharge the contract, you can claim damages because now you have to rent the truck from someone else. Okay? So in this case, you have the option to discharge the contract. Why? Because it is a substantial term. It's a condition. Why is it a substantial term and a condition? Because in this case, the innocent party, you, would be substantially deprived of the benefit of the contract. Does that make sense, Joshua and everybody else?
Yes.
Okay. So now, Joshua, we're going to change the example a little bit. Okay?
Yeah.
So now, you're going to ask me for a moving truck. I'm waiting.
Can I borrow you? Can you borrow me a renting truck?
I can rent you. Yeah, I can rent
Moving
you.
truck. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. So let's say but maybe you don't just want me to bring you a moving truck. Maybe you say, I want also to make sure that there's a full tank of gas. Ask me for a full tank of gas.
Also, can you borrow me a truck with a full of gas?
Yeah, and also you want it to be very clean inside.
And also have a clean inside?
Yeah. So now, and when do you want it by?
Can I have it within 3 days?
3 days, no problem. April 5th.
Yeah.
Now, $500 still?
Yeah, $500, so.
So now, April 5th, I show up with the moving truck, the same size that you wanted, but instead of it being a full tank of gas, it's only 75% full. And maybe it's not 100% clean. Maybe it's dirty. In this case, who breached is there a breach?
Yes.
Yes, why and who?
Breach on your terms?
Yeah, and why did I breach the contract?
Because the gas was not full and also it was dirty inside.
Correct. So who's the innocent party?
Me?
Who's the innocent party?
I'm the innocent.
You are the innocent party. So now, does my breach allow you to discharge the contract, to not pay me?
Wouldn't it be less important terms? So
Yeah, and what do we call that?
it would be a warranty.
A warranty is a less important term. So because it's a less important term, you asked for a moving truck and you got a moving truck,
Yes.
right? So you do not have the option to discharge. If it's a less important term, repeat after me, Joshua. If it's a less important term,
If it's a less important term,
the innocent party has no option to discharge.
the innocent party has no option to discharge.
Correct. So you have to pay me, and then you can sue me for the cost of putting extra gas in the tank and to clean the truck. But you cannot say, go away, I will not take your truck. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
So that's discharge by breach. So discharge by breach, you have to look at whether it's a condition, which is a term that substantially deprives you of what you asked for, or a warranty, which is a lesser term. Yeah, it's supposed to say moving truck. Sorry, Rifat, you're right. Large moving truck. Correct. Thank you, Rifat, for pointing that out. Okay. So now let me give you another example. Rifat, if I'm pronouncing your name right, if I'm not, I apologize. Can we use you for this example? Do you have works? Yes?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Tell me who, it doesn't have to be your favorite musical performer, but give me the name of a musical performer you like a lot, or that you know.
Post Malone.
Who's that?
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5. Okay, I'll pretend I know who that is. Maroon 5. Okay? So let's say that you own a big concert hall.
Okay.
And you booked Maroon 5 to perform at your concert hall on April 30th.
Okay.
Okay? And your contract says you have to perform on April 30th at 8 p.m. And you also have to come to practice in the morning on April 29th and in the afternoon.
Okay.
Okay? So let's say Maroon 5 does not show up on April 30th. It shows up to practice on April 29th, but it does not show up on April 30th. Has Maroon 5 breached their contract? Yes or no?
Yes.
will you be able, and let's say you're paying them $100,000, will you be able to discharge your obligation to pay because they did not show up?
Yes, because it was a substantial term for them
Correct.
to come.
Correct. It substantially deprived you of what you wanted to get under the contract.
Right.
That's exactly right. Let me give you another example. Let's say they don't show up on the 29th to practice, and they only show up on the 30th to perform. What happens to your answer now?
You couldn't. It's a lesser term, so I don't think you can discharge.
And what are we going to call this lesser term? Rafa is helping you.
Warranty.
A warranty. So in this case, do you have the option to discharge, or can you only, or are you obliged to pay and then sue for damages?
You can only sue for damages.
Correct. Because it's a warranty. So now let me change the example, Rifat.
Okay.
If I'm not pronouncing it right, tell me, okay? Because I'm not doing it. Okay. So let's change the example. Let's say you're still the owner of this concert hall, but instead of bringing Maroon 5 to perform, you take pity on your prof. And you know that my ambition, my entire life has been to sing in front of a big crowd. But you also know, because you've spoken to my family, that I'm a lousy singer. They don't even let me sing in the shower. Okay? So you enter into a contract with me, you're not going to pay me $100,000, you're going to pay me $10,000 or whatever. And you're going to say, you have to show up on the 30th to sing, but you also have to show up on the 28th and the 29th to practice. And let's say I don't show up to practice because I was speaking to my friend Maroon 5, and Maroon 5 says, you know what? I didn't show up to practice, and so what? He couldn't discharge the contract because I'm a superstar. So I decide not to show up for practice. What's your answer now?
Are you still coming on the 30th though?
Maybe, but the point I'm trying to make is maybe in this case, there's a discharge, like Mohammed is saying. Why? Because I don't know how to sing. So maybe the obligation to practice is more of an important term for me than it is for these Maroon 5 people. Right?
Would it be a substantial term for you to come to practice?
I think so. Don't you think it would be a substantial term if it were me versus Maroon 5?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's...
Is there a way they can put it in the contract that you have to come to practice?
That's what they've said. They said you have to come to practice.
Oh, okay. So
But my question is, if they breach, if they don't show up to practice, they breach. They clearly breach. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
But the question is, does the breach allow the innocent party to discharge? Mm-hmm. In some cases, the answer is yes. In some cases, the answer is no.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're doing right now. Right? If you ask for a truck and you get a tricycle, you can discharge. Right?
Yeah.
If you ask for a clean truck and you get a dirty truck, you cannot discharge.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So that's basically discharged by breach. Mesbah, go back to your notes for chapter 7. Okay? This is important. Contracts do not generally have to be in writing. As long as you have meeting of the minds, they can be on the phone, they can be on the internet, they can be by handshake, they can be by just words. Contracts do not have to be in writing. Okay? So that is discharge by agreement, by breach, discharge by breach. Any questions on that? Anyone? Are we good? If we're good, you have to say yes. So Mesbah, you can prove the contract existed in a million different ways. Don't worry about how you can prove something, but you can prove it. You can look at an email. You can get witnesses. There's a lot of different ways to prove. Of course, the best way to prove something is if you write it down. But you can still have a contract even if it's not written down. Just believe me when I tell you that. Okay, so the last kind of discharge we're going to talk about is discharge by operation of law, which is known as frustration. That's just what it's known as. Discharge by operation of law is known as frustration. And believe me, a lot of the litigation that's going to occur because of the coronavirus is going to be frustration. So let me explain to you how this works. Okay? So discharge by frustration. To hang, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, if I'm not, I'm sorry. Do you want to be the example for this case? You can say no, I'm not going to be upset. Yes, no? I can wait a minute. No problem. Okay. Mohammed, if you want to be, you can come and jump in. Anybody who wants to speak can speak. Mohammed, why don't you speak? Jump in.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
Okay, good. Mohammed, it's okay to hang. Don't worry about the audio. So, Mohammed, I hear that you have a beautiful cottage in the Muskoka. True?
Yes, I do.
Oh my God, you know, it's so funny you should say that because I want to go up there with my family the first week of July. Would you rent me your cottage the first week of July so I can have a family reunion?
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic. How much are you going to charge for your cottage?
I would say 5,000.
5,000. You know, it's a big cottage. It's a whole week. Okay, we have a deal.
Okay.
We have a deal. First week of July, Mohammed. Done?
Yes.
Perfect. So let's say, I hope it never happens, okay, Mohammed?
Okay.
But let's say between now and July 1st, there's a fire. And your cottage burns down.
Oh.
And the fire is not your fault. And the fire is not my fault. Can I sue you for not renting me the cottage?
I don't think so.
No, you're right, but I'll explain to you why. Can you sue me for not paying you $5,000?
No.
No. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with frustration. And frustration, you say a contract is frustrated. That's the word you use. And when is a contract frustrated? A contract is frustrated when an event occurs that is nobody's fault. And by nobody, I mean one of the contracting parties. It's in this case, Mohammed, was it your fault that the cottage burned down?
No, it's not my fault.
Was it my fault that your cottage burned down?
No.
No. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a faultless event, which means nobody's fault, that makes performance impossible. Is it possible for you to rent the cottage to me now?
No, it's not possible.
Is it possible for me to use your cottage now?
No, it's not possible too.
So now what that means is that we are both discharged from performing our obligations. Why? Because the contract is frustrated. Say it with me, Mohammed. The contract is frustrated.
The contract is frustrated.
Correct. Because performance is impossible and it's no one's fault. It's not my fault or your fault. Okay?
Yeah,
So
sure.
if I really didn't want to rent your cottage and I sneak up to your cottage a week before and I laid it on fire and I burn it down, will I be discharged from the contract, from the obligation to pay you?
No, you have to pay for both, for the contract and for the cottage.
Correct. Why? Because this is someone's fault. So We're only dealing with this when there is no one's fault. And this is the default rule. The default rule is if it's no one's fault, if it's none of the parties' fault, and the contract becomes impossible to perform, both parties are discharged. Yash, you're asking me a great question. If Mohammed's neighbor, who happens to also have the name Yash, decides to burn down Mohammed's cottage, are Mohammed and I discharged from our obligations? Yash, yes or no? Yes, we are discharged. So when we talk about faultless, we're talking about the fault of the parties to the contract. Okay? So if someone else does it, it's still not our fault. So we're still both able to discharge the contract. So it could be Mohammed, a third party, or it could be a force majeure. It could be force majeure. In English, people translate as irresistible force, or they translate as act of God. So what if, instead of your neighboring burning your house down, there's a tornado, and the tornado destroys your cottage? In this case, is the contract frustrated, Mohammed? Yes or no?
Yes, it is frustrated.
Yeah. So this is an event that occurred. It's now impossible for you to rent the cottage to me. So this is an example of frustration. The contract is frustrated. We can both discharge it. The event that caused it is an act of God. So I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about coronavirus because but I'm telling you as a lawyer, the litigation for the next 10 years is going to be whether the coronavirus is an act of God. So if people want to get out of their contract because of the coronavirus, they will say this is a case of force majeure. It's now impossible for me to perform. And they're going to use this as a reason to say they can discharge the contract. Okay? So what is the general rule, Mohammed? Is the general rule that if something happens that is not the fault of either party, the contract is discharged?
The general rule is when the contract is frustrated because when something happened out of no fault me and you, like the both parties.
No fault me and you that makes the performance impossible.
Impossible, yeah.
Okay? That makes performance impossible. So if it's more difficult, if one of the roads is being paved and I have to drive 30 minutes longer to get to your cottage, that's not a case of frustration. Okay? So let's say if an event occurs that makes performance impossible. So say it, Mohammed, with me. An event occurs that makes performance impossible.
An event occurs when make the event impossible.
That makes performance impossible.
That makes the performance impossible.
And it's not the fault, of either party.
And it's not the fault of either party.
Then the contract is frustrated.
Then the contract is frustrated.
It means both parties are discharged.
It means both parties are discharged.
Exactly. So that's the general rule. So that's the doctrine of frustration. And the doctrine of frustration basically says it's not fair for me to sue you because there was a tornado that wiped down your cottage, or for you to ask me for $5,000 because there's no longer a cottage. That happened and it was nobody's fault. None of our faults that it happened. So the expression people use for this is French, force majeure. The English expression is irresistible force, but it's a bad translation. Most of the time people use the expression act of God. Okay? So that's the general rule. But let's say, Mohammed, that I really wanted to have this family reunion. And I don't care if your cottage is destroyed by a tornado. I'm bringing my family from all over the world for this, and I'm paying you a lot of money.
Okay.
Can I enter into a contract with you, and you have to agree, of course. Can I enter into a contract with you that says that no matter what, you have to deliver me a cottage the first week of July?
I think if
Even
you
if a tornado burns down or destroys your cottage.
add the frustration clause, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So this clause is not called frustration clause, but you're close. It's called a force majeure clause.
Okay.
And a force majeure clause, the parties are allowed to agree to this. So force majeure clause is the third example of a boilerplate clause you learned today. The first was time is of the essence. The second was entire contract clause. The third example is force majeure clause. So I can say in this contract, Mohammed, I know you own a bunch of cottages. I honestly don't care. I want a cottage. And if your cottage that you were going to rent me burns down or is a tornado or whatever, you have to find me another cottage. You're bearing the risk of a tornado, of a hurricane, of a typhoon, or whatever. Are we allowed to put that clause in the contract that shifts the risk from me to you?
Yes, we do.
And that's called a force majeure clause. So now, you don't have to agree to this. But if you agree to this, you're going to be liable. So that means you're probably going to want to make sure that you have a backup. You're probably going to want to make sure that you have insurance. You're probably going to be sure that you fulfill this contract. So this is an example of a force majeure clause. If you say nothing, the general rule is we both bear the risk equally. Okay? But when we enter into the contract, we can choose who bears the risk the most, me or you. And that's known as a force majeure clause. And you may decide to agree to this, but instead of charging me $5,000, you might charge me $8,000 because now you take more risk. Right? That's exactly what happened to your co-op contract. Okay, you can tell me that story afterward, Mohammed, or now, but I'm sorry that it happened to your co-op contract. Okay? So I know I'm a faculty advisor for co-op, so I know that a lot of companies are reneging on their contracts because of the virus. So, and they're saying it's force majeure. They're saying the virus is force majeure. Nobody could predict this. It's no fault of anybody, and it makes the contract impossible to perform. That's what they're saying. There's going to be a lot of litigation about this. Do we understand what frustration is? Do we understand what force majeure is? Do we understand why this is a case of discharge? Yes or no? Okay. So that's that. Don't worry about the default rules in all of these provinces. And don't worry about this chart, which I don't even understand. Okay? I want to make sure that you understand the rule the way I've said it to you and the examples. And it can be the same thing for yoga pants. It can be the same thing for anything, right? Mohammed, if you're supposed to deliver to me yoga pants, that you make at your factory, and your factory has a huge flood that destroys your factory and it's nobody's fault, are you now discharged from your obligation to deliver those yoga pants to me? Yes or no?
Yes, according to the contract, is frustrated.
Yeah, we call it the doctrine of frustration, the principle of frustration, right? Mm-hmm. And the principle of frustration is that the contract is frustrated because this event was not my fault or your fault, and it makes performance impossible. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's how this works. If I wanted to be 100% sure that you would deliver these yoga pants, even if there was a flood or some other event, what could I do?
You add force majeure clause?
in the contract.
In the
And the force
contract.
majeure clause says, even if there is a force majeure, even if there is an act of God, Muhammad's going to be responsible. So if you agree to this clause, Muhammad, are you going to be more careful or less careful?
I would be more careful, for sure.
Maybe you even get more insurance, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There we go. That's how this works. So that is discharged through frustration. I'm not going to give you the chef example because I like my examples better. Okay? So we've done the 4 cases of discharge. Any questions on discharge? Are we good? Okay. So let me tell you the plan for next week, and then I will answer, before we go, any other additional questions you have about process or final exam or whatever. So the plan for next week is we will do remedies. Remedies is chapter 12. And we will finish remedies in the first part of next week's lecture. The second part of next week's lecture is going to be final exam review. So final exam review, I will review with you